Welcome to the Crib Dominion podcast with your host, Diamond D Money 1996. Excited to bring you episode 1 of the brand new Decreeing Dominion Uncut series. Got a wonderful guest here with us today. Her name's Allison out of Dayton, Ohio. Go ahead and give her a follow on her podcast, Brown Girls Heal, on Spotify. And we are live. Hello, Kia.
Good morning.
How are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm doing well on this wonderful, decently weather Saturday morning in Indiana.
I get it.
I've got my Hawaiian coffee here, so nice and energized this morning.
Did you say wine, coffee?
No, Hawaiian coffee.
Hawaiian. Okay.
Yeah, I was at Kroger yesterday, and it said it came from Hawaii, at least 10% medium roast, and it was on sale. So I was like, I guess I'm getting coffee today. Brewed it this morning.
I'm having pomegranate and water this morning.
No, okay, that's nice. That's good fiber too. Got to get the pomegranate in. Good cleansing.
So
So how is that pomegranate?
I actually enjoy it. The whole pomegranate is cheaper than buying the palms that's already in the plastic thing, but the whole
Oh yeah,
pomegranate is more
yeah, I know
work.
you're talking about.
So I still buy the whole pomegranate and torture myself.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you gotta have that. Yeah, that ain't no joke. I remember when I was a teenager, I went to Sam's Club once, and I didn't know what pomegranate juice was, so I bought the whole. I think it was like $20 or something. I bought the whole gallon jug of it and went home and tried it. And I was like, this is terrible. Yeah, that's a
Mostly,
acquired taste for sure.
well, most things that are good for us don't taste the best.
You right. And then my mom always said everything that look good ain't good
Thank-
for you. See,
Ooh, baby.
it goes both ways,
Mothers have good wisdom.
always. And so, thank everybody for tuning in to the Creative Dominion podcast. Again, this is your host, Diamond D Money 96. Welcome to the first episode of the Decreeing Dominion Uncut series. I got a wonderful guest for you here today, Miss Allison, out of Dayton, Ohio. Go ahead, if you're tuning in, give her a follow, like, and share on her podcast, Brown Girls Heal, on Spotify. And so, if you caught the prelude of this series, like I said, we're going to be interviewing different domestic violence warriors. Again, we're not victims, we're warriors, striving to be the best versions of ourselves daily. And so, go ahead and give a like, follow, and share, and tune in. And so, we'll get right into it. So, how you doing today, Kia?
I am well. I have absolutely no complaints. Kind of excited to be sharing. Domestic violence is one of those things that we don't really touch on often. So whenever I get an opportunity to share, it brightens my day.
Awesome, and definitely, like I said, and for the viewers out there, if you or your loved one are suffering from domestic violence, feel free to seek help, seek higher counsel. Again, like I said, we are not victims. You are a survivor and warrior, striving to be the best versions of yourselves daily, and so feel free to seek assistance. As throughout the series, we'll have a wealth of individuals sharing how they overcame their oppressors. And so, why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am from Dayton, Ohio. Born here. I am the mother of two wonderful daughters. I had a son who transitioned on to glory. And I am an advocate for all things woman. I believe that we have the powers and the tools within our specific gender to heal, restore, and deliver one another through chains of bondage, from chains of bondage. And I like that word oppression because we are often oppressed by the many things that go on in the world, things that we endure, and things that we tolerate. Those are the most important things about. Oh, and I am a believer um, of God, as in having relationship, have seen I have seen him do wonderful things. I felt him do wonderful things, and my life is a testament to him making all things new.
Amen. Amen. So, why don't we start from the beginning? Why don't you take us on the journey of, a little bit about your childhood and how you um, were situated in your situation back then.
Oh, okay. So overall, my childhood was absolutely amazing. I was raised by a single mother. She was an Army veteran, so she worked for the government my entire life and until her transition. I didn't really experience um, the mother wound that I hear a lot of young ladies talking about. There are some things that I wish that I could have changed, but my mother wasn't abusive in any way. I wasn't abandoned. I wasn't neglected. Um, we are not talking about this on the podcast, but it kind of set me on the path. I did endure childhood molestation, like a lot of black and brown boys and girls, at an extremely early age in life. My mother trusted her childhood friend's son to babysit us, me and my sister, on the weekend. And not only was he babysitting, but he was having his way with my body, which ultimately opened up the door for other levels of perversion later on in life. And that sums up my childhood. Going into my teenage years, the act of molestation made me extremely curious about what sex was. So I engaged in consensual sex extremely early, as early as 14. I actually got pregnant at 14 and gave birth to my daughter at 15. And from there, I was really in an awkward place in life. I didn't know what I wanted. Um, you think you have the love of your life. I didn't. Um, we, I can't even say that we grew apart. I mean, we're teenagers. So I decided that I wanted somebody a little older, a little more mature, somebody who had things a little, not even really better. He just had a job, and my daughter's father didn't. So I decided that I was going to cheat. And as we walk down this pathway, you will understand that the grass is not always greener on the other side. So I started dating this guy who was a little bit older than I am. I'm sorry. And that is how my introduction to domestic violence started. Um, he took me and my daughter in. I still lived at home with my mother. He was older. He was not much older. I went to Dunbar. He went to Patterson. It's about 2.5 years age difference. Uh, my very first encounter with domestic violence was him slapping me. We were sitting in the TV room at his mother's house, and he dozed off, like not slightly dozed off, like snoring dozed off. And so I grabbed the remote off of his chest to change the channel, and he decided that he wanted to slap me, which came out of absolutely nowhere. And his mother, who was in another room, heard the slap. She came in there and she asked what happened. And I told her. And all she said to him was, "Don't put your hands on him. Don't put your hands on her again." There was no more conversation. There was nothing else. Um, After that initial slap, the whirlwind started. He ended up losing a job at Lord Corporation because he smoked weed and his urine came back dirty. So it was from smoking weed to popping Xanax. They called them footballs at the time. I didn't really understand what a Xanax would do until the threat would come. After the slap, my abuse was more so, it started off emotionally. Um, he would call me everything in the book. Ironically, he liked darker complected women, but talked about my skin all the time, told me that I wasn't the S word and that I would never be anything and that nobody else would want me because I have a baby and I ought to be thankful that he wants me, which was weird because he wasn't even my daughter's father. And then the emotional abuse kicked in where he really wasn't ready to be faithful, but he did not want me to be with anybody else. So he was extremely controlling. There was a period of time where he would go out and do whatever he wanted to do and would stay intact just long enough to make sure that I hadn't moved on. Um, and it was always, I'm not out here doing nothing. I'm just out here trying to make some money. I need you to be faithful to me. You can't be out here cheating. Um, and at that time, it really wasn't about anyone else. I'm in high school, barely making it out of high school, working a job, trying to be a mother. I honestly didn't have time to juggle the unnecessary stress. But at my age, I had no idea how to have this conversation with an adult. Definitely not my mother, who was extremely, she was extremely blunt, straightforward, and didn't hold anything back. So and we never really had uh, conversations about womanhood and what is to come, what to accept, what not to accept, until after everything exploded. Um, I remember using my friend's house as a safe haven. I eventually moved out of my mother's house when I turned 18, and that's when it increased a little bit more. My daughter would go over to my mother's house for the weekend, so he had more range to control me, more so in actions. Um, and I believe that when my what do I want to call it? My discovery and my readings and findings is when an individual has a weapon that the violence could potentially increase, and that is what I witnessed. I was oftentimes threatened that he would take my life if I ever decided to leave him, and that no one else would want me, and that I was the best thing that was ever going to happen to him. It eventually got to the place where maybe twice a month I was fleeing to my friend Teresa's house to sleep on her white chase sofa. Um, Back then in 2000, we in the early 2000s, literally, we did not have cell phones. So I would flee from the place that we lived in together, and I would go to a payphone and I would call her and I would tell her, and if she didn't answer, I would definitely make sure to leave it on her answer machine that we just got into an argument and he's threatening me with the gun again. And if anything happens to me, that Ryan did it. Like, I was very explicit in the information that I would leave on her answering machine. Sometimes she would pick up, and we had a designated meet spot. It was at a laundromat that used to be here on Salem Avenue in Dayton, Ohio. And so I would sit there for a few minutes. If she didn't show up after a short period of time, I would just go back to the house. In most cases, she always showed up because there was no way for her to call me back. And I would go and I would lay on her chase for a day or two until I was ready to go back. And this cycle went on for about well, I'll take that back. This started in 1999, and the cycle went on for about a good year until the abuse went public. That sums up the start of it.
And so, like I said, a wonderful explanation. And so, uh, going back to that, um, like with all the knowledge and experience you have now, what would you tell your early 18-year-old, 19-year-old self if you could go back?
The very first thing that I would tell anyone is build you a safe village, people who you can trust, and most definitely someone who is older, a little wiser, more experienced than you. Because my friend was the same age as I was, and the best we could do was retreat to her house. We didn't necessarily know the resources. Now we have technology. You can Google almost anything that you are going through. And while I appreciate some of the 800 numbers, I also appreciate having things that are tangible, things that I can feel. And when I say that, I mean people that I can build relationship with to help me create safe havens, exit plans. I always, because we as women, sometimes we put so much faith and confidence and trust in our counterpart that we don't properly prepare for what if this doesn't work. Um, I know we are in this place where relationships are not what they used to be, but there are people who still value relationships and respect a man as leading, as a provider. So I'm speaking to those individuals. Um, Create you a exit plan and gather all of your important documents. Get birth certificates together, get social security cards together, get shot records together, report cards, um, documents from the school. Collect all of those things and place those documents in a safety deposit box. Get a fireproof safe. Find you someone who you can trust. Place those items in a manila folder. Another thing that I would say to my younger self is there's it's not even about somebody wanting you. You deserve better. And in that case, he is right. People don't even deserve the broken you. So nobody really wants me in that condition. Always allow yourself time to heal. Anything traumatic that you overcome requires a season of healing. We hop from relationship and honestly, it's not even really relationships. We are looking for a numbing agent to numb the pain that we are currently feeling because we don't even know how to wrap our head around it. We don't even know what's next. All we know is we're looking for the next thing of comfort. And so, what we find is people are resorting to alcohol, drugs, sex. Those are all numbing agents. They don't make you better. Allow yourself time to heal. Find you a trusted therapist. Get you a mental health coach. Build you a mental health wellness team. It will enhance your life so much more.
Awesome, awesome. I definitely agree with that. Like I said, they always have the saying back in the day. I know it mostly refers to raising children, but uh, it also refers to self-development as well. And they always used to say, it takes a village, to raise a child. But like I said, we're all humans, and we all started as a child through the evolution of life. So, um, like to your point, you want to have that you know, team, that village of individuals, of multiple ages, especially you want to have somebody with a wealth of wisdom and knowledge that you do not have. They always say your net worth is determined by your network. And so you always want to surround yourselves with individuals that uplift you and empower you and may be able to guide you in ways that you could not do alone. They also say that you're the average of the five people that you are associated with. And so I encourage everyone listening, um, kind of reflect on yourself, look at your own life, look at your associates, and then in regards to numbing agents, are you self-medicating with numbing agents? Do you flock to the drugs, the alcohol, promiscuity? Um, are you, or are you truly healing? And so that's a great way to point it. Question: would you say, what would you say to an individual that feels stuck in limbo? Like maybe they don't have a child, or maybe they have multiple children, and maybe they don't have that supportive family structure. Well, what would you say to an individual that feels like they're all alone and stuck in a state of limbo?
The very first thing that I want you to know is you deserve better. Your children deserve better. Um, all the trauma that we inflict on ourselves as parents is ultimately passed down to our children one way or the other. If we are raising sons, they are inherently believing that the actions of this male figure in their life is okay and acceptable. If you are raising daughters, they are getting the same image. And I know we live in this age where everybody wants to be a ride or die, but the reality is, we as women, excuse me, if we don't get ourselves together, we literally die trying to ride for a man who would never do the same for you. What I want you to do is the very first information in the first, gather all of your documents. It really disturbs me that birth certificates are expensive as they are, that we have to go through so many hoops to gather these documents. Nonetheless, reach out to organizations that may be able to help you and assist you financially with getting these documents if you don't have the finances. There are some shelters that are great resources, um, as in tool building, because what I don't want you to do is go from shelter to shelter. Um, Therapy, start therapy as soon as possible. And I know we are in this really rough time where people um, have lost faith in God because of what is visualized that's going on in the church. But I promise you, there are safe haven sanctuaries out there that want to rebuild and connect and watch God restore the broken things in your life. Um, as I said, I wouldn't be who I am today without relationship with God, without believing, without trusting Him with all of my pain. And so those are the things that I want to give you. And I know a lot of those things may sound cliche, and some of you are probably saying, I tried that and it hurt me even more. Then I want to deposit this. We've all experienced heartbreaks in romantic relationships, but you didn't give up on that. So we cannot give up on trying to make ourselves better. You have to keep trying. And listen, I get it. It hurts like hell to know that I trusted this therapist. And because some of us live in really small cities and everyone knows everybody, your business got out. There are trusted therapists who understand that they took an oath and realize that if I decide to expose you, that is my license on the line. I get that some of us have been hurt by people in the church. This is the one thing we have to realize. Everyone in the church does not have relationship with God. And we have to learn to separate the two. And I know it hurts because some of these people are in leadership, some of these people sit on the same pew with us, and you really want to hope and believe that when you go into these places that you leave lighter than when you walked in. And in some cases we leave heavier because we feel ostracized, because we may not look like the rest of the congregation. But don't give up. Pray in your own time and ask God to send you to a safe haven sanctuary where people are literally on fire for God, living for Him, chasing after Him, where lives are literally being altered. There is hope. You do not have to die in a dark season. And I know while we are in the middle of this global mental health crisis, it really looks like all hope is lost. But if you open your eyes wide enough, there's light, a glimpse at the end of the tunnel. There is hope for you, baby girl. There are people who want to take you in, who want to shower you with genuine love, no expectation, no ulterior motives. But you have to learn to trust again.
And so, like I said, that's very well spoken. I do believe, like you said, um, with the darkness, the light being at the end of the tunnel, I do want to let the viewers know that, there is no darkness without light. And so, if you're going through a really dark time or you feel like you're stuck in a dark place, um, just know that just means that your light is very bright and God's trying to show you something and lead you to the light. And so, with that being said, with your domestic violence journey, can you go back to, how your relationship with God started and then how you navigated and trusted that relationship throughout your domestic violence journey? And how did the relationship with God, lead you to the light and lead you away from that oppression?
Whew, I think we're gonna need wine for this portion. No, but honestly, so as a little girl, my mother typically worked on weekends, so we had weekend babysitters, and they were extremely active in church. So we went to whatever church our babysitter was going to. I remember a lot of my time was spent at Prayer Garden. Um, with Miss Jackie Deering. Her daughter was my babysitter, but we went wherever they went. And I remember singing in the choir, participating in Sunday school, listening, understanding that there was power in prayer. Well, not necessarily understanding, because we see the adults pray, we learn to mimic that, but it's in our times of struggle. Um, as a young adult. So I was 19 years old when my domestic violence situation went extremely public. This particular May the 15th, 2000. Um, the young man that I was dating had picked me up from the beauty salon, and we had got into an argument on the way to the house. And so, like, the argument exploded. So I said, just put me out right here. And at this time, I lived on Kipling, and we were on Kensington on Prescott. We were on Prescott, and there used to be a post office right there. And so I got out right there by the post office, and me and my daughter, and I decided to walk home. And so when I got to the house that we shared on Kipling, he was outside with his red and black book bag. And I already knew what was in the book bag because he had a sawed off shotgun created. It was made by a man who lived in Medway, Ohio. Um, a man who had sold drugs to plenty of times. He made this gun for him, and it was a sawed off shotgun. And so he came out with the shotgun, and he asked me that I want to continue the argument. And I said, no, I don't. And I grabbed my daughter and I started running down the street. So he got in his gray Cadillac and he sped down the street. He got out of the car and pulled the gun out, and he said, do you want me to spray your ass? And I said, no, no, please don't shoot me. Please don't shoot me. And right across the street was some older black gentlemen working on a house. They were building something outside, it was bricks. I remember it was bricks. They were building something that goes up the stairwell. And this is when men would stand up for women. I could hear them yelling at him almost like a distraction, probably more so to let him know, like, it's people out here. This is not what you want to do. And he put the gun back in his book bag, got in the car, fled down the street. The men who were working on the house, they called 911. And I went back the opposite way up Kipling, the street that we lived on, and police were swarming the area. I had on a yellow sundress and a blue jean jacket. And so an officer came up and asked me if I was okay. And I just kind of held my head down and I'm just trying to get out the way. I really don't want anyone involved. I don't know what's going to happen. So they said, well, we need to pat you down, but we need you and your daughter to get in the car. We got a call about a domestic disturbance and there's a gun involved. And I let it was a male and a female. The female, she kind of did a small pat down because I didn't really have much on. We got in the car and they were asking me where did he go, and I'm like, I don't know. His mother lived around the corner, but that wasn't an indication that that's where he was going. So we get to the top of the street and I see the car and I panic, so I duck in the back seat of the police cruiser, and they put a call out to other officers that they spotted the gray Cadillac. And so they followed for about maybe a mile, if that. And so then they let us back out at the post office again, and they turned on their flashers, and there was a gray Cutlass sitting in the parking lot of the post office. Random lady. To this day, I don't know her name or who she is. She said, "Do you need to go somewhere?" I said, "Yes, I want to go to my cousin's house." She took me down to my cousin's house, which was about maybe 2.5, 3 miles away. And I got to my cousin's house and I told my cousin, I said, either Ryan is dead or he's going to be dead. She said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, he always said that he never wanted to go back to jail. And if the police ever tried him to take him back to jail, that he would shoot out at them and that would cause them to shoot him and he would die." And so she said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Just let me sit here for a minute." So we are sitting there in her bedroom, and my mother calls, and I look at the caller ID. At this time, my mother has no idea what has happened. She didn't even know what kind of relationship I was in until this day. Um, I told my cousin, I said, "Tell her I'm not here. I don't feel like dealing with this right now." So my cousin, she did as I asked her to do. She said, she's not here, Auntie Karen. And my mother said, "Cut on the news." My cousin cut on the news, and by the time I made it to my cousin's house, he shot a police officer, a lady cop. Apparent, he shot her in the neck. She was paralyzed, and they shot it at him in 9 times. Well, they shot him 9 times, more than 9 bullets. I'm assuming. I don't know. I wasn't there, um, and he ultimately survived that. Um, my mother at that time said, "Bring my baby here because when the police come and look for her, they are going to pick her up from my house." So my cousin drove me to my mother's house, and maybe 15, 30 minutes later, it wasn't long. It's just whenever you are in a traumatic situation, all the time seems so close. So time elapsed, and detectives come to my mother's door, and I tried to run out the back door because I did not want to deal with anything else. Um, they asked my mother if I was there. I was like, "I don't want to do." She said, "If they are taking you, they are taking you from my house." So I go with them. They didn't put me in handcuffs because I wasn't under arrest. Um, but this is when I realized that there's a major disconnect. Well, okay, let me be honest. I understand that the police were in an extremely high stress situation. Their colleague was shot. She was shot in the neck. At this time, I don't think they knew much about any of the conditions of anyone on this day. So they take me down to an interrogation room. And when I tell you I felt smaller than I felt with him yelling at me with a gun at me, extremely small. They are yelling from all angles, trying to get me to corroborate a story with them. It was a horrible experience. I thought it was isolated because they were under a lot of stress and it was a lot going on. But other victims of domestic violence who I've spoken with share this same story. There is a lot of tension and stress at these phone calls. One reason is the domestic violence call is turn into one of the deadliest phone calls. More officers are hurt in the line of duty, killed in the line of duty, responding to domestic violence calls. So I understand that there's a heightened awareness. But the disconnect comes in when the interrogation takes place of the person who was victimized. It is belittling to have men yelling at you in the same manner You were violated. Even if they're not using cuss words, there's a better way of communication, and that is missed, which is oftentimes why we see where women don't show back up to court. They then you have a perpetrator who was walking free. It's not in all cases that that woman didn't want to show up, but what we don't see is what goes on in the interrogation rooms, the way that we are spoken to. It is very degrading. And let's be honest, most of these police officers don't look like me. They're not black. There are white men. They are white men who already have this hierarchy attitude as if I am beneath you. And here I am meeting another statistics in the eyes of this man who feels superior to me. That is the part we miss. And so we degrade women. We talk about women when they don't have the heart to show back up. But where's the village surrounding them, asking them, why didn't you show back up? That is what we miss. Most importantly, when we see cases being dismissed. And yeah, it's traumatic, but we still need to build to allow women to have the boldness to walk in that courtroom and say, yes, that was me. Yes, this is what happened. Then we can see more convictions. And I know people are going to raise your eyebrows. It's not about locking up black men. It is about holding them accountable for the crimes that they committed. Because guess what? When he is free that time, he's still abusing her. He's starting to stalk her, and then it leads to her death. Everybody wants to know, why didn't she leave? There was not a safe exit. She felt like everyone was against her. Everyone was out to get her. The justice system, in essence, fails many victims because there is not great training on how to deal with those who are being interrogated. We miss that mark horribly.
Yeah, I definitely can attest to that. Quick story. Actually, when I was in high school, went to Ben Davis High School in Indianapolis. Um, so every morning before school, you'd have the commons area and you'd walk with your friends. So I had my neighbor, his name was Ivan. Um, we were talking to another teacher, I believe one of his math teachers, and then had, walked away, when the bell rang to start class. I just remember this specific day. It was my junior year of high school. I was eating lunch in the cafeteria with my friends, like a normal weekday in high school. I remember the dean, Miss McGowan, had uh, just said, "Hey, can you come with me?" At this point, I was never. I think I had one in school suspension all throughout my time at Ben Davis. I went there junior and senior year. I think it was like one like in school suspension or what have you. So at this point in time, never got in trouble. 3.65 GPA. Um, so they put me in the office. The had this really nice security police officer. Can't remember his name, but they had took me to the office, and it was a little room. It was kind of like their interrogation room, and it was just one desk. It was a real small room, no windows. A thick light brown wooden door. Um, I remember the principal came in. The cop was there, and all they said, they didn't even tell me like why I was there, what they thought I was doing. All he said was, "Have you ever been arrested or in jail?" Obviously, I said no. Like I said, I didn't smoke weed, didn't drink, nothing. So he said, "Oh, well, you're going today," and I'm just still confused. And so they left me in the room alone. It felt like the whole day, but it's probably like 30 minutes, if that. But like you said, that isolation, that interrogation, and I'm still like, all I did was like literally go to class, go to the lunchroom and eat. Like you know, what could have I possibly done? And so they come back in the room and they literally just apologized and then let me go, and then like that was it. And then so what had I had found out about the situation was there was so my friend Ivan, he had like a known reputation of stealing things. Obviously, I didn't know that at the time. But what happened with that specific teacher is that while she was outside talking with us, someone had came into the classroom, dug into her purse that was in her by her desk, and like stole her rent money. And so they thought that Ivan did it and I was the accomplice. And so obviously they looked at the cameras and the timelines, didn't match because the time it was reported stolen. I guess they ended up catching who did it on the cameras. But to your point, just the innocent bystander eating lunch, like you're automatically accused. Obviously me and Ivan are both black. I'm more caramel skinned. He's obviously a darker skinned male. I'm 6'1". I was a football player, so big guy. He's like a short guy, but he's fit. Cut up. Runs really fast. So like you said, just that automatic assumption of, oh well, we looked at the cameras, two black guys talking to a white teacher. I guess they automatically, stole the money. So just that situation, that's literally been my outside of my domestic violence experience. Um, with and when I had that experience, I didn't really. I think the only time I talked to the cop was on the ride to the um, hospital, and so that's really literally been my only like altercation with police. Like I said, I never got a ticket, never been pulled over, nothing like that. And so just that small, you know, instance in high school, I could see like basically they say innocent to proven guilty, but with the interrogation process, it seems like it's, oh, you're guilty. Yeah, you're guilty. Oh, we messed up. We checked the cameras. I guess you're not guilty. You can, and then it's just like there's no like compensation. There's no really like deep apology. It was just like well, back to class you go. Thanks for nothing. Like thanks for wasting my time. And so, um, definitely appreciate you sharing that story. And so, quick question on that. Was that cop ever able to survive the one that got paralyzed?
So she did survive, and she passed away a few years later. And I actually went to her funeral. It was for me an extremely hard funeral because there was so much surrounding it. I always wanted to reach out and have a conversation with her. I never got to do that. I really wanted to thank her in essence because from the view that I was able to see, there were other cops there, and all she wanted was for him to put her gun down. She was also the wife of a cop. She was a mother. She was many things. Um, and I remember writing letters in my journal to her, simply thanking her for her service, for what she did, and not to. She was a white cop, and in this world where we have a lot of police brutality going on, um, she always she's forever my hero. I never got to say so many things to her that I always wanted to say. So yeah, and yeah, so she didn't survive much longer. Apparently, there was some was paralyzed, and there was some healing that was never able to take place in her body as a result of the gunshot wound.
So sorry to hear that. Definitely condolences to her family. And so, like I said, uh, going back to that, um, you know, once, like, obviously, I assume that your oppressor, was booked to jail after that, surviving those 9 gunshots. Can you kind of speak to that? When it happened, was it like a relief, or was it like a kind of like a realization of, oh, that literally could have been me if the cops had not, or if that um, group of men weren't working on the house that day. So it seems like like you said, God puts people in your life, and always, even on a situation seems dark, there's always light at the end of that tunnel. Can you speak on that a little bit?
So if I can be honest, survivor's remorse is extremely real. Um, February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, and my abuse started in as a teenager. And so there are so countless stories of teenagers who never make it out. Um, I could easily be one of them. As an adult, I've been in domestic violence. I could be one of them. Um, I I sh- I don't necessarily struggle a lot because what I want to do, what I shift my focus to is using my voice to create platforms where women can hear my story, hear other stories, and they are able to understand that there is life after death. Not life after death, that there is life after survival. So often we see women struggle forever after we overcome some things because life is hard. And as Black people, we are just now getting to a realization that mental health is real. Um, I was raised by a woman who we didn't talk about a lot of feelings. You feel it, okay, but we're not about to have a conversation about it. But that's how the women, my mother, if she was still living, my mother would be 71. That's how the women in that generation were raised. But that's how it is something that's passed down from generation to generation. Um, so I like to make lemonade out of the lemons that have been given to me. And I try to share my story every chance I get. It is something that is extremely passionate. Um, of mine to make sure that others living in it, trying to get out of it, need to get out of it, that those who have lost loved ones to it understand that there is nothing that they could have done. There's so many dynamics that goes on with this because you have survivors, the family are like, well, what did we miss? How did we not see it? Are we to blame? Well, she tried to come to us and we told her this. But then we have victims who are so bogged down mentally. We don't understand. I remember as a kid, people would say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That is the biggest lie that I've ever heard. Because for me, it took me forever to realize that I had some self worth, that someone would want me, that I wasn't black and ugly, that I was beautiful to other people. The words riddled in my heart forever. And that's whether it in any relationship. We have to understand that we create unhealthy environments, passing down generational trauma to other people. And we have to do better in that. Yes.
And so, definitely agree with that. Like you said, just growing up, whether you're in church or not, if you're listening out there. So in the Black community, like I said, we're kind of just now over the past 5 to 10 years or so, getting to that like mental health awareness. Just from a male's perspective, it was like, you're a man, like shut up and deal with it. Um, and then like, just watching, I had three sisters, so no brothers growing up. So just watching it on the other end, and it's not even a like malicious type of behavior, like on purpose. It's more of like you said, that generational curse that's passed down. Like, well, when I grew up, my mom said deal with it. So then I'm gonna tell my sons and daughters to deal with it. They're gonna when they have kids or you know, um, their family, they're gonna say, hey, well, my grandma said deal with it, my mom said deal with it, and then same thing for males, like, granddaddy said be a man, deal with it. My father said, you know, be a man, deal with it. So I guess I'll, even though you're like emotionally inside crying out, you're not necessarily being heard. So it's all about empowering each other, not only as just black um, people, but as people in general, just empowering each other. And like you said earlier, you know, finding that village of individuals that are wiser than you. I feel like every person in life, whether you think so or not, you are valuable. You do bring your own skill set to the table. And I think that um, just building your table with different individuals with different skill sets. Um, I always say I had in my younger work history, about 18 years old, used to work at Amazon. I had a guy named was Andre Green. He had a master's degree in business from IU, Indiana University, Bloomington. He told me two words of advice I always take with me. He said, one, you don't have to have a degree to own a business. And he said, two, he said, um, nobody necessarily has weaknesses. If you surround yourself with individuals that their strengths match what you lack, then you'll always have strengths. And so,
I like that.
um, yeah, that just goes with any aspect of your life. You can look and see, hey, if you're not good at relationships, well, surround yourself with individuals that are have great relationships, whether it be um, couples in the community that have been married for happily married and communicatively married for multiple years. I think like I said, that's not a different topic, but you know, don't just when you do documents in your job, they always call it pencil whipping. Don't pencil whip through life. I think that not to get on a tangent, but I think that um, people confuse time with expertise, time with wisdom. You can be at a job 50 years and suck at your job. That doesn't make you wise. So, like, it's not necessarily just surrounding yourself with just people, surround yourself with the right people. So, if you have a couple that, yeah, they've been married 10 years, but he had three kids out of wedlock, through the marriage, domestic violence, that's not necessarily someone you want to go for good relationship advice, but it also could be someone you go to for the perspective. I'm big on um, Simon Sinek has a great book called Start With Why in the Infinite Game. And Infinite Game talks about different aspects of life being some are finite, some are infinite. And so, um, just with that timing, you want to surround yourself with the right individuals. And so, to get back on pace here, like I said, I know we were talking about, your spiritual journey. And like you said, God kind of allowed that situation to transpire, if you will. And so, from that, what kind of upstarted, like once you obviously left that situation due to him, having that encounter with the law enforcement, from there, how did you begin to trust God and, build yourself up? And then where did you, progress from, being able to leave that situation?
So immediately after the situation happened, naturally I isolated myself from a lot of people, and my cousin was attending a particular church at the time, and she had her pastor come and meet with me, and he came over and we ordered pizza. The weirdest thing, but that's what we did. It was the closest and fastest thing, and we sat there and we had a conversation. And I said, "Oh, okay, this seemed okay. I could kind of rock with this dude." And I started going to his church, And from there, I enrolled in the discipleship class. I eventually started teaching Sunday school, and I started to feel like I had a little bit of purpose in life again. There was a spark. I felt hope. I felt joy. I felt renewed. I felt like God had kept me for something. And I wanted to make sure that I was able to fulfill and walk in all that He created me to become. Yeah, that's how that went.
Awesome, awesome. And so, to the viewers out there, what's one piece of advice that you would give someone who is, you know, on that out outskirt of survival, like they just, left their situation, you know, gaining the knowledge that you've gained throughout these years, let's say a young mother of two that just left a domestic violence situation, or even just a younger individual yourself, what advice could you give them on moving on from that victimization?
The first thing that I absolutely want to say is, well, I'm a realist. So initially, it's going to be hard. There are sacrifices that are going to have to be made. Some things will be extremely uncomfortable. Learn sooner than later to lay your pride down and ask for the things that you need, whether it be shelter, um, rides to anywhere, food. Um, there are people who genuinely want to help you. I know that you have this heightened sense of protection for you and your children if there are children involved. And I understand and I get that. There are evil people in the world, there are good people in the world. Pray above all things. The Bible tells us that the blessings of the Lord maketh rich and addeth no sorrow. So if you pray about something and God sends it to you, there will be no sorrow. We have to use that meter when we are praying and we are operating to make sure that we are operating out of the spirit and not out of our flesh. I failed at that so many times. If your situation was extremely public, I encourage you to reserve sharing your story initially. There are people who are vultures and only want the gossip. Protect yourself and your children at all cost. They do not deserve your truth before you heal. I know we have this thing where we want to share, we want to get our stories out. I encourage you to silence yourself. That makes situations messy. Remember, I told you there are evil people and there are good people. If people are only coming to you asking you about the event, that is definitely a clear sign. Some people who have a little financial gain will try to financially finesse their way into your life. Use wisdom. Remember, the blessings of the Lord maketh rich and addeth no sorrow. Those are things that I did not do. I had people that I went to high school with, people just coming out being nosy, and I felt that I could trust them. And this is where it gets even better at. Because remember, I told you that my cousin sent the pastor? In the end, I found out that I could not trust him. That is why I made sure to add a scripture in giving my explanation. We have to use instinct, we have to use wisdom. Go with God in all things. Get your documents together. And listen, If you need to start off in subsidized housing, that's fine. I'm telling you to do the things that I had too much pride to do. If you need to go get on welfare, it's fine to start. Use it as a stepping stone. Everyone may not be starting from the bottom. There may be some who might need to file bankruptcy because you were living in this gated community, living this good life. But now you have to scale back some things because you are no longer with him and your income cannot suffice that lifestyle. And that's okay too. Pride keeps us bound. We are so worried about these images that we built in the flesh to keep up for people who really can't keep up with their own image. Swallow your pride, humble yourself, and start from scratch. That's the best advice I can give you. No one ever told me that. I felt like I had to keep going at a high level. Heal, go to therapy. And when I say therapy, I'm not talking about your girlfriends in a group message. We fail at that. Most people don't even have the capacity to take on your trauma because they're dealing with trauma that they haven't healed from. Get you a professional village. Go get your checkups. Have all your blood work done. Trauma does so many horrific things to our bodies. We literally need to heal mind, body, and soul when leaving these situations. The damage is real and can be life altering if you let it. Heal early so your children don't suffer any longer.
So, like I said, that's a great, some great points that you made there on, some people, like you said, like they used to say the word half-assed or try to cheat the system, you know, to your point, seek higher counsel. You know, every friend in the group chat might not have the expertise that you need to get over your situation. And to your, also to your point, everybody's going through their own baggage, their own fighting their own demons, overcoming their own adversaries. And so, uh, be cognizant of that when you do begin that healing journey. If Keisha, that, been your home girl your whole life, she's got 5 kids, facing an eviction, um, you know, didn't really graduate high school, doesn't have any domestic violence experience, doesn't even have a man or hasn't had a man in a while, that might not be the right person to kind of like, hey girl, this is what's going on. Can you help me? Seek that person that, you know, maybe they went through domestic violence early on in life and overcame it, or like I said, maybe it's a couple that, a woman of a couple that's been married successfully and happily for 20 plus years, and like you said, with the pride, your pride might deter you from reaching out to that older woman at church that been successfully married. you know don't let the pride stop you from your own victory, because like I said, you might say, oh, well, I'm just going to talk to Keisha because, you know, um, I don't want that lady in my business, or, but you're letting Keisha in your business. Or maybe it's already public anyway. So, like, don't let little nuances of pride, deter you from your journey and achieving your own personal victory. Utilize all resources. And so, a lot of resources you might think are not resources, but they could be the one resource that you need to get over the hump. Don't allow yourself to fall into that box of, oh, what? Well, I've known Keisha 10 years. We went to high school together. That's my go-to. Well, if that's your go-to and you're still stuck in the same situation, maybe it's time to change who you go to. And so, real quick, like I said, I know you had $2, and you know said, yeah, the son that went on to glory. Throughout this journey, um, what, you know, if any, have your kids told you, your daughters, or, how did, your daughters view, even now today, how did your daughters view, watching their mother, heal?
So, the interesting thing is, both of my daughters have had to watch me heal through two very traumatic situations. Um, One daughter, who I had much younger, has had to watch me heal through everything that has happened. And while she is not, and she'll tell anyone, and I'm still yet praying, while she'll say that she is not a Christian, she also professes her adoration to God for what she has seen him do in my life. And so I take that as a win, excuse me, because I understand that we are living in this time where we have a generation that is almost giving up on God. So I take that as a win. Now, my younger daughter, who has had to watch me heal from something that her father inflicted me on, we have a different bond. In essence, her father um, is responsible for my son's death. So with her, she didn't have to watch me heal from domestic violence. She literally had to watch me heal from grieving and mourning and depression over the death of my son. So she too has a different adoration for what she has seen God do in my life, the way that she has seen him heal the dark seasons. So I am thankful for that. And they both have a passion to help people, to see people not suffer. I believe that that comes from them seeing what their mother has had to endure. And even in that, I still want better for people. So that's the brighter side of all of this.
Awesome, awesome. And so, closing out here, what's one motivational quote or one piece of advice that you would give anyone that is, um, and also what are some signs and or some, telltale signs of, you know, situations that you've seen like early on, and give the viewers, some piece of wisdom and advice on one, early signs of domestic violence and how to flee quickly, and also um, those still in the midst of the storm, and then a little bit on once you are out of the storm and the skies are clear, what are some advice you can give them to continue progressing forward?
The very first thing that I always encourage families to do as a whole is stop moving your family functions from house to house. I understand that somebody may have a better backyard, somebody's house may be better suited for indoor events. But when we move from house to house, we are taking away the safe havens in the event that our loved one needs to find a shelter. And when the abuser shows up, he's not showing up to play patty cake. And in some of these cases, is how we see where the victim and several other family members are being slain. Um, I know we live in this world where we feel like isolation is, they just think that they cool on me, they think that they better than me. There are instances where women are in relationships when they become isolated that it is not healthy. Quit thinking she acting brand new because she got her a new piece of sausage. Check on your friend. Your friend might be enduring over there, and your pride might be keeping you from checking on her, helping her to create a safety plan. Um, Sunglasses when there's no sun on, constantly wearing long sleeve shirts. What is it that they are trying to cover up? Always changing plans. There is no reason that someone backs out of every girls' night out. There's no reason. Listen, and I remember when I dated the guy, he would check the odometer. When you have people that are always antsy, always feeling that they need to check in instantly, that could be another clear tell sign. She's not checking in because he got her whipped. She's checking in because she's terrified that if he don't know where she at, it's going to be some consequences when she gets home. We have so many stereotypes that are actually hidden signs of danger that we are shallow in our approach. Um, Above all, listen, this is a cold world. You need a sincere, genuine relationship with God. Dr. Maya Angelou said it the best. When they show you who they are, believe them. We have to get quit giving people who abuse us and neglect us so many chances. Listen, baby girl, he's not going to change. Hurt people hurt people. And we need to apply that to all areas of life. We have a generation of men who are refusing to heal, who believe that it is okay to unleash on the weaker vessel. We owe it to ourselves to set boundaries, to say no, to leave and exit in a safe manner. I'm not telling you to get up in this man's face and talk reckless and tell him that you're leaving. You are setting yourself up and anyone who shows up to the house. I am saying be discreet. Make you an exit plan where you can live to tell the story. If you have family in another state, we like to make all of these announcements. Deactivate your social media. Quit putting all of your business out there. You are giving people too much access to your personal life. They don't need to know when you've gone out of state. They don't need to know where you're at dinner at all the time. Some instances, we are our own worst enemy trying to put a flex out for people who don't care that much. Protect your children. Your children deserve better. I know you feel like you can't find anything better. You will. Abuse is not the high bar. Verbal, physically, emotionally, financially, spiritually, it is not the high bar. And for some of you, you need therapy outside of your pastor. If your pastor is not a therapist, you're not getting therapy. We have to quit using other alternatives to make us comfortable in the mess we want to stay in. Get you a therapist, get you a mental health coach, build you a mental health network. If you were diagnosed with anything else, you would build that network to make sure that you were on the other side of healing here on the land. Do that same thing with your mind. You deserve to be renewed. You deserve to be restored. You deserve to be healthy mentally above all things. It's in you, baby girl, to live, thrive, and flourish.
All right, and then make sure, like I said, follow Kia Allison on her podcast, Brown Girls Heal. Again, this is Kia Allison out of Dayton, Ohio. Closing remarks. Again, like, comment, share, tune in, leave a review. We'll also have a optional poll up in regards to healing journeys. I want everybody to continue to become the best versions of themselves. So I appreciate all you all for listening and tuning in. Thank you, Kia, for the time you took out to educate the people. And always remember to um, uplift each other, seek higher counsel. Like I said, gather all documents and keep them in a safe, well guarded place. And don't let your pride deter you from your own personal victory. Thank you.